Welcome back to America's Commercial Real Estate Show. I'm Michael Bull. This segment is brought to you by arborcrowd.com. Check them out for commercial real estate crowdfunding. Well, today we're talking retail and retail real estate. And one of the things that's affecting all types of real estate, commercial real estate and residential today is technology. Please welcome my next guest. It's Duke Long. And Duke is well known in the commercial real estate field for his expertise in technology. And he's with the Duke Long Agency. And he's joining us on the phone. Duke, thanks for being with us again.
Hi. Thank you, Michael. Love being on your show.
Well, Duke, what do you think about when you think about commercial real estate technology? What's the first type of companies you think about when it comes to retail real estate?
Amazon. That's the first one
Right.
I think about.
Right.
And I think everybody else thinks about it too. I mean, the way that they are changing the logistics and not only the last mile, they've figured out the last mile. They figured out how to get in your house and start being your retailer from there. So to me, that's obviously one of the biggest ones that are out there. The other ones that I'm familiar with, you now have some of these large real estate companies like Brookfield or whomever who are starting their own retail technology companies just to mine data, to help with inventory, to help other retailers, ironically, and try to compete at that level where everyone has to, which is Amazon.
Yeah. And you say Amazon's in your house, and do you mean on the delivery part or the order part with like things like Alexa?
Well, both actually.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can order anything, and I live in New York, and those little boxes show up all the time in our buildings. The ability to order that stuff and not even have to go out, and the thing about being in New York is everything is technically at your doorstep, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have to get in a car and go get something, but even then, they're going to bring it to me. So I think they've figured that part of it out. Ironically, now they're going bricks and mortar, which I think, if you ask people generally, just someone who's not really around real estate that much, how big they think the e-commerce part is, they think it's a lot bigger than it is. It's still, I think even still over 90% is still bricks and mortar of sales. So it's growing, but it's not a huge substantial part of the marketplace.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think you're right. I think people think that half the stuff is bought online, and it's really not. And while we're mentioning Alexa, you can actually tell Alexa or Siri to play podcast, The Commercial Real Estate Show, and we'll hear our current show, our latest offering. And we're pretty much putting up a new podcast every week and a new video every weekday. So check that out. So, Duke, what's down the pipe? What do you see for the future in technology and how, especially related to retail?
Well, and this might be the boring side of this and not the the fancy business consumer side, but what I've seen a lot, especially into the real estate part, is the distribution. Where again, a company like Amazon or some of these bigger companies are so efficient and so good at getting their products out that some of what I would call the second tier and mid tier companies are struggling to compete against that. So you've got a lot of robotics and different types of software systems that are trying to make these other retailers and other competitors more efficient. I think that's huge. And I think someone said for every $1 billion spent online, we need 1 million square feet of warehouse space. So warehouse space is now almost as good of an investment as Class A office. So I think, although that's boring, I think that's really where the fight is right now to try to compete for that consumer. Once you get beyond that, everybody talks about the experiential stuff and all the different kinds of things they need to do to attract people to the retail. Being in New York, there's a lot of stuff that you see that's just flat out empty. Because I can get it somewhere else, that doesn't mean I'm not willing or able to go out and still have that experience. But it's just a little bit different for everybody. So I think we're kind of in a transitional period.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I think of New York, I remember when I first went there, I started seeing the showrooming. It seems like there many, many years ago because the space was so expensive. They don't have a big selection there. They go get it out of the basement somewhere. So it seems like they've been showrooming in Manhattan for a long time.
Yeah, and I'm certainly not a shopper by any stretch of imagination. I have 2 daughters that certainly are, but just one of the experiences where one of my daughters went to get some different clothes for something, and they didn't have a certain pair of pants. And they said, we'll have it to you next day. So I don't know where that came from, some warehouse or wherever, but she said, okay, go ahead. And they sent it to her house the next day. So that doesn't mean she wasn't shopping or being there, but their willingness or ability to get that product to her the very next day was a huge reason that she wanted to do that. So where were we before doing that? Were we all shopping online? Were we all just looking? Or, do we have to go to the mall to do that anymore? I certainly don't think so.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why I never really liked shopping for myself anyway. So I really do like the online experience. And you mentioned kind of the last mile, and I think that's an evolving thing for retailers is to get things to us quickly. You're in the technology world. What do you think about driverless cars delivering us our goods or drones delivering us? Do you see technology companies out there really trying to get into that space?
I've thought about this a little bit. Again, I'll relate to, first of all, I'm from the Midwest, so good luck flying anything around because there's some people out there that don't find that stuff interesting. But in New York, how are they going to fly something down? I live on 74th Street. They're going to fly something down and park it right in front of my apartment? I find that a little bit difficult to believe. I know they're testing some robotic things that will bring groceries to your front door or whatever. I think that'll be cool, but what happens when people start taking those things? They say, well, they have GPSs in them. You think somebody cares if they have GPSs in them? They'll just beat them to death and take the food out of it. I don't know. I'm not sure that I'm completely ready for that experience. I think the driverless cars would be great. Bringing me stuff would be great, but we're still maybe 5-6 years out, even away from that, from everything that I've seen.
Yeah. And what about some of the data companies? We've got companies that have been around a while, like CoStar. You've got Reese. You've got Archie Analytics. But there's also new companies that have been gaining some ground, right?
Yeah. There's still, again, the same way of collecting data. Do we source it from the brokers? Do we source it from the retailers or the owners? I think in the retail side, that is still hugely important. It's fairly obvious that that's what you need to do to try to understand that consumer a little bit better. I think some of these legacy data companies, quite honestly, are just hanging on and they're making money because somebody thinks that data is still valuable. I think there's so many more efficient ways that we can and are. I know some of the companies that are coming up that are doing it, certainly in multifamily and retail, I think are leading the way.
Yeah, and retail is really interesting when you look at the data, the cycle graphics and the detailed information you can get about consumers nowadays. It can really benefit the retailers. Oh,
no doubt about it. And again, I think, and I mentioned Brookfield, I think they have a company that they started just on its own, just to do data, and it's like a $200 million company already.
Yeah. That's
just for their data and how they're doing things with retail. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, excellent. Well, Duke, thanks for being on the show. Good information. Thanks for joining us.
All right, thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. Love your stuff.
All right, thank you. Well, stay tuned. We'll have more on retail and retail real estate after this short break. I'm Michael Bull. This is America's Commercial Real Estate Show.